Hi, my name's Rebecca. I'm actually doing a presentation on one of the blogs that I did a few weeks ago before we had to choose our topics. And basically, I just want to say quickly first, it's on sex education, but a lot of it is based on my own personal experience of sex education, so it may be different for everyone. But what made me want to do this blog and this presentation was that I feel that my sex education wasn't that good, especially considering the ages that it was delivered to and the way it was delivered to people. So I've looked at some different ways that it could be changed. But if anyone does have any questions or anything throughout, please feel free to ask. Okay. So if you can read them without laughing, then I applaud you, because I can't, and this is something that I found when writing my blog. And when someone saw my presentation yesterday, they were laughing and was asking why I'd put penis, vagina, sexual intercourse onto a slide. And to me, that kind of proves my point of my sexual education. I can't read those or say them aloud without wanting to laugh. And so if anyone else feels like that, then it's the same. Okay, so the problem, Stevenson et al. 2003 said that sex education wasn't meeting the needs of young men, but he didn't really explain why this could actually be. And one point that I thought of was that most teachers are female, and I found that 25% of classroom teachers are male. So as a man, would you feel more confident asking a male teacher rather than a female teacher? Because I know for me, if I have any problems, I'd want to see a female doctor, I'd go and see a female teacher or a female friend. So I wondered whether that was something that he found, that actually it's to do with the genders that are teaching sex education. Okay, so what I pose is, do you think that you would have asked more questions about sexual health if it was actually peer-led, instead of having an authoritative figure stood at the front of the classroom that normally encourages you to sit down and be quiet and only ask questions that are relevant to the topic, whereas this is actually a topic that you need to ask the silly questions, because there are so many myths and different things about STIs and pregnancy and sex in general, that something that seems to you that is really silly really is a genuine question that young people need to have answered. And this was a statistic that I found, is that in 2010 there were 43,315 new cases of STIs in young people aged 15 to 19. So it's specifically the target audience for sex education, but it's not working if that's such a high number. So the peer-led benefits. Some studies have found that traditional teaching versus peer-led teaching is beneficial in English literature classes from what's known as voicing, and it's basically where a class will sit down, and the way it's placed, did everyone have to do Romeo and Juliet at school? I had no idea what was going on in it, and the way that we did it, and this is how they propose that you do it, is you sit in a classroom and you explain it to others, because without realising it, you use your own slang, you use your own terminology to explain something, and it's exactly the same point, but just put into your own terms that other people your age will understand. One of the things that they recommend for peer-led teaching is that it gives this voicing ability. So with that, you get the use of terminology of, some people say lots of different words. I still hear words I have no idea what they mean. And so I wouldn't be surprised if some young people, if you said vagina or penis, they may not actually know what you're on about, but there are so many different words that they may hear someone else using a word, not realising that is actually what they mean. So also, would you have asked more questions? Would you felt more comfortable to ask more questions? And some research has shown that, especially in sex education, peer-led teaching is more interactive because it's done as a discussion group. It's more motivating for the students, and it's been shown to be more comfortable, more open for discussion within the group. So research. Erdős et al. In 2005 proposed that although it is very good to have student-led sex education, it's the financial cost of that you'd have to teach these students, but also to be able to teach these students to a standard that they're given the correct and accurate information to the students. So not only making it more comfortable for them, there's no point doing it if they're giving the wrong information. So that was something that they found. Another piece as well is that there's actually little research in this area of whether student-led learning is actually better, because one of the studies actually pointed out a lot of the schools that they contacted to find out whether they'd be interested were all really wary to find out. They didn't want to be the tester year, and obviously in a lot of schools, a lot of parents, they do look at the things of like the rate of teenage pregnancies, all the things that surround the location as well. But obviously that would have a detrimental effect on their school if they took on this new scheme of peer-led and it didn't work. You're not just failing in school, you're going to be failing a year group of potentially about 3,000 students in one school that have not got beneficial, they haven't got effective sex education. So that was one thing, and that's really funny. I have to read sex education. So that was one thing, and that's really funny. I have to read it. It says for condoms, hot girls love eating me cookies. Cookie Monster loves the girls. And that's why he wears cookie-flavoured condoms every time he goes home with some hot girl monster. I thought that was really good. So to conclude, overall there is a need, because it's been shown already that sex education is not being effectively taught to students, and it may not be that it's peer-led learning is the way, but there's something does need to be done. So that students get the most out of the experience and they get the most amount of questions answered. But a lot of information needs to be researched a lot more in this area, or schools need to be willing to try something different. And maybe that is the problem, is that schools don't want to change. They don't want to try this new thing that could be completely beneficial, but there is that risk that it could be worse. So that's something that I conclude with, is that they need to all be more open and willing to try different schemes for this. And then that's it, thank you. Oh, these are from a German condom sex website, and I included them in my blog as well, because when I saw them I thought they were really effective of explaining that I think some young people don't understand how risky sex actually is, especially concerning STIs, and I thought that was a brilliant way to picture it to young people of what you're comparing it to.
Alright, okay. So when you say peer-led learning, are you actually talking about the peers of the class, or are you talking about people coming in? Or?
Some of the things that other schools have done with different topics is, say for example in my school, we did a peer counselling scheme, and it was, I was in sixth form at the time, so it was just students who were a bit older. So what year did we had sex education in year 11, so it would be people that were about 2-3 years older, but because they're in sixth form they have that representation of being a lot older than their peers, and it would be those kind of people would come in and do it. So it wouldn't necessarily be someone from their class, it would be someone else but who is still seen as a young role model to them.